Hi, and welcome to this edition of Fresh Hope for Mental Health. Our mission here at Fresh Hope for Mental Health is to empower you to live well in spite of your mental health challenge by sharing insights through interviews, practical tools for living well, encouragement, and courage for overcoming all from a Christian perspective. And now, here's your host, Pastor Brad Haves.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to this edition of Fresh Hope for Mental Health. I'm Brad Haves, your host, and our purpose here is to empower you to live a rich and full life in spite of having a mental health diagnosis. I'm so glad that you joined me today. I have a guest with me that I've had before on the podcast, as well as he's been here in Omaha and sang at one of our events very, very early on. So I'd like to have you welcome with me musician Josh Wilson. So, Josh, great to have you here today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It's been a while, and I'm eager to catch up.
Yeah. So you said you were having a quiet day at home today, huh? And recording?
Yes, that's right. My son is at school, and my wife is substitute teaching at his school, and I've got the house to myself. So yeah, I'm making use of the quiet and doing some recording today.
Yeah, well, right. Have you written some new music that you're going to record today, or?
Well, today I'm actually working on Christmas stuff for this year. And,
cool.
Depending on when people are listening, this will be Christmas of 2024. I'm doing a recording of Mary Did You Know?
Oh, yeah. So
one of my favorites.
That's today's project, huh?
That's right. That's that. I'll do that. And then if I get my parts done on that, I'm doing an instrumental of What Child Is This as well.
Oh, wow.
So my goal is to release both of those this year.
Are you do you do the soundtracks also, or the music, the instrumental part, or?
Yeah. So I do a little bit of everything. So Mary Did You Know will be with a vocal. I'll sing on that one. And I'm having a good friend of mine, Kyle Sconawell, produce that. He produced my latest record, Mental Help.
Which we're going to talk about today.
Oh, cool. Well,
yeah.
He's a wonderful producer, and he's doing Mary Did You Know? And then I'm going to produce What Child Is This? And that'll be all instrumental. I'll just play a bunch of different acoustic instruments.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you're such a fantastic guitarist besides vocalist. It was so exciting to have you here in Omaha that first time we had we call it Celebration of Hope, but now we call it back then we were calling it Night of Inspiring Hope, but now we call it Celebration of Hope.
That's great.
And we don't do two events at one time.
Yeah. Well, I loved being with you. Do you remember what year that was?
Gosh, that had to be, oh golly. It was at least 3 years or so before the pandemic.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, it was our first one ever, and we've had quite a few since then. So, yeah, we've got to have you back to Omaha. And
I'd love that. I'd love that.
We've come a long ways, and so have you, it sounds like. I want to hear about this latest project, and I have a feeling your son was probably an infant when you came here to Omaha, so now to hear he's in third grade, oh boy.
Time just keeps marching on, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, whether you're having fun or not.
That's right. Yeah, he was born in 2015, so I think you're right. I think 2016 or 17 would have been around the time I was there, which that's wild. 2017 was a pivotal year for me. That was the year I got sober from alcohol addiction. So I'm not sure when you caught me in that process, but either way, it was probably a difficult time.
Well, tell me about your latest project. I'm excited to hear about that.
Yeah, so it's called Mental Help, HELP. And it's my first full-length album in 10 years. I've been doing music for a long time, almost 20. And I've put out a lot of records over the years. And during the last 5 to 6 years, I released singles and EPs, but really no full-length project just because of the way that my record deal was set up. And I'm newly independent, and so now I get to release music at a pace which I want to.
Sure.
And I had so much written and so much I wanted to say that I decided to do a full-length album. And so Mental Help is sort of the the intersection between mental health and faith in Jesus. I grew up in the church.
Yeah.
I followed Jesus for a long time. And I've struggled, though, with anxiety and depression and addiction and these things that when I was younger, I did not think Christians were supposed to deal with.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I realized that I don't call myself a Christian because I have it all together. I call myself a Christian because I don't, and because I need Jesus to hold me together. And just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It just means I'm not alone.
Exactly.
And so these songs, it's a collection of songs that sort of explores all of those topics. My own story, like I said, anxiety, depression, and addiction. So that sort of makes their way through these songs. And, from the very beginning, it's kind of a bit of an autobiography. So
sure,
there's a track called Jesus and Therapy, which is about anxiety and getting sober. And then there's a song about depression called God's Not Mad at You. And so, it kind of runs the gamut, but it's been fun. It came out in May, which is Mental Health Month. And I've just been out playing shows, singing about these things since then. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, that's cool. It just sounds like a fascinating project. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to let people know, our audience know about it, because, so often songs are faith-oriented, and they're not necessarily that intersection of like where we're at with Fresh Hope. And so it'll be great to be able to get, I'm going to give every song a real solid listen and be encouraging people. Maybe what we could do is even at some point do a thing where we go through each song and play a little bit of it and introduce people to the concept or what was behind it. I don't know if you'd be open to that, but
yeah, for sure. I would love that. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, what brought you to the point of saying, okay, I'm going to do a whole album on this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. During those 5 years I was in my last record deal, I had written so many songs and I had lived so much life. Like I said, I quit drinking in 2017. And so I kind of had stories to tell about how that happened and what led me there and the hope that I found. And I had this sort of collection of songs piling up, and it wasn't anybody's fault. And, the record deal, the folks over there were great. It's just the way sometimes these things are structured. You just don't get to release music as often as you would like. Yeah. And so I had this whole backlog of songs that sort of documented my journey through all of these things and the help that I found. And it's funny because these days they say whoever they are, they say don't put a full album out at once because it won't get listened to. People will listen to one or two songs and then move on because of the way we all listen to music. It's mostly singles.
Sure.
And I don't disagree with that, but I just had so much to say. I sort of wanted to lay this foundation, this bedrock of where I am now. And then, and now I'm releasing kind of a song a month or every month or two. And it was really, as the list of songs came together, I realized there was a theme. And as I wrote them over the years, I didn't mean for it all to be about mental health, but that's where I was. And I had the idea for a smaller record, maybe 3 to 5 songs, an EP, and I wanted to call it Mental Help because I thought that was kind of clever and would communicate exactly what I'm trying to say. And then as Kyle, my producer, and I started to record that, I quickly realized I had a lot more to say than just 3 to 5 songs. So we enlarged the scope of the project and we did 11 songs.
That's incredible. Now, how do people find those 11 songs? Are they?
I can tell you the easiest way. No matter where you listen to music, there's a website. It's Mental Help, HELP, mentalhelpmusic.com. And then from there, it can launch you to Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon, all the places.
Oh, great. Yeah, that way.
mentalhelpmusic.com.
Yeah. Not mental hope, but help. HELP.com. Yeah.
mentalhelpmusic.com.
Yeah. So, and now you're working on the Christmas stuff. And will you be touring at all around Christmas time, or?
Yeah, I will. Now, I won't be in the Omaha area, but I'll be in Florida and Texas, and we're still booking a couple of shows. But I play in all 50 states. I tour pretty consistently, and
Right.
so if people want to keep up with what I'm doing, I keep all of my tour dates on my website, which is my name and then add music, joshwilsonmusic.com. You can also find the record there. And I'm pretty active too on Instagram. If anybody wants to keep up with me there, I post a lot of videos about things that have helped my mental health and a bunch of my songs and things like that. But yeah, I love touring. I love playing these songs live, and it's been fun to hear people's stories of how God has helped them in their mental health journeys.
Oh, that's great. For those of you who are listening, I want to encourage you to check that out by going to mentalhelp.com, correct?
Mentalhelpmusic.com.
Oh, mentalhelpmusic.com. Oh boy. Okay. Don't listen to me. I have a great memory. It's just real short. So
I get that.
Yeah,
I get that.
mentalhelpmusic.com. I love it. I love it. I'm so grateful to hear from you, Josh, and I want to encourage folks to take a listen to that. Tell me, what is the most significant thing you have found through your own recovery, through the recovery from all of these issues?
Mm-hmm. Yep. That I can't do any of this alone. I tend to try to solve problems by myself. And at best, I will bring God into the equation and pray and say, God, please help me with this. And of course he does. And it's important to pray, but I have to get other people involved. And that's friends, family, my counselors, my doctors, my church. I tend to isolate, and that's when these things get worse. And when I bring them into the light and into community, that's when I found hope and that they've gotten better.
And that's so true for all of us. We so easily do that, and then it does, and things stay sicker in the darkness, don't they? Our secrets keep us sick, they say, whoever they are, like you said.
Yeah, that's right. That's so true. That's so true. Are you familiar with Andy Gullahorn by chance?
Sort of.
He's got a song called The Secret. It's beautiful and it makes me cry and it's haunting, but it's about this man who carried a secret, like you're saying, and it grew and it grew. And the very last line of the song is he thought he could carry his secret to the grave, but secrets carry you.
Yep.
And so you're totally right. We bring those things into the light, and that's where we find help.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and the scriptures teach us that, really, and
yes.
It's just crazy what we think we could keep a secret, and it just is baggage that we're carrying around the whole time.
That's right.
Yep, you can't do it alone. Can't do any of recovery alone. It's part of what most of us fight in recovery issues is that we want to do it ourselves, and we don't. We think, hey, I'm not that bad. I don't need that much help. And we tell ourselves, kind of like, suck it up, buttercup, get this done, and then suddenly it's a harsh reality to come to the point where you're at the end of self and you can't do it alone. So, what would you tell somebody who's possibly struggling with alcohol or anxiety or depression right now? What would you tell them?
I would say, and this is related to what we've been talking about, in my song, Jesus and Therapy, the whole bridge is tell God and somebody else. And that would be my advice, is to tell God. He's always there. He's always listening, but also tell somebody else, because that's when we can sort of see the hands and feet of Jesus in action, when we can hear back from someone's voice in the room. And, and you got to tell the right person. Obviously make sure it's a trusted friend or family member.
Right.
but I could not have done any of this without help. I remember I was drinking and well, the amount I was drinking was in secret. I mean, it wasn't a secret that I drank, but I think most people who knew me thought that I drank in moderation, and I was hiding just how much and how addicted I was. I was using it to self-medicate anxiety.
Sure.
And in the short term, it did great. And in the long term, it got so much worse. Yeah. And so I had to just tell somebody. I knew, and I was ashamed because first of all, because of the addiction, but secondly, because of the way that I was hiding it from everybody, including my wife. But I just remember, it was June of 2017. I was driving. I was hungover. It was one morning I was hungover, and I called my friend James. I was, as we say in recovery groups, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
And I called my buddy James, and I said, James, I am drinking too much, and I've tried to stop, and I can't, and I need to get help. And I'm telling you now, so that another person knows and can make sure I get some help. And from there, that's when I found help. I got in with a counselor. I got into some recovery groups, and that's when things changed. And it wasn't easy, but it was possible for the first time. So tell God, tell somebody else. Those are that's my best bit of advice.
That's a great bridge. That's a great way to live life, period.
That's right. That's right. We can't do it alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, once you told this friend, how did they react? What did they say? What did they, did they judge you? Did they harshly come down on you? Or?
Oh, no. He was full of grace and love. And he said, I'm here for you however you need. And what I told him was, look, I got to tell my wife. And that's what I'm most scared of.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I knew her reaction would also be kind and gracious and loving. She's a wonderful person. But I had been hiding this from her, and I was ashamed of that.
Sure.
So I told James, and he said, okay, man, I'm glad you told me. I'm glad I know. And then I actually had a counselor who I called, and I said, I need to come talk. And I went into him, and he actually got me in with an addiction counselor. And eventually, in the next couple of weeks, I wrote out everything I wanted to say to my wife. And it just because I didn't want to forget it. As I talked to her, and I asked her to come in the kitchen. I said, I need to tell you something. And I read it out loud to her. And she just hugged me, and we both cried. And, it was wonderful. It was the hardest conversation.
She probably wasn't too surprised, was she?
Yes and no. Okay. I don't think she knew the extent, but there had been enough times, sure, that she had seen me having drank too much. I never drove. I was never violent. I was never angry.
Right.
I'm an introvert, and I'm a pretty quiet person. And I get in my head, and alcohol helped me sort of turn the volume down on that. But yeah, she was grateful. I told her, and we actually both went the next morning to that addiction counselor, and I introduced her to him. I had been seeing him actually a couple of weeks. And from there, like I said, the first year or two were very difficult. I know some people, when they get sober, it's like this immediate change where all the craving goes away. Uh-huh. And I always like to tell my story because that was not my story. Sure. It was really, really hard. And now that I'm 7 years sober, it's much easier and better. And I don't think about it, but maybe like once a month. But at first, it's like constant,
Well, and I would think when you're trying to self-medicate anxiety, especially, that would be really tough. Because you've got the anxiety, it hasn't necessarily gone away, and now you even got a little bit more anxiety on top of it.
That's right. That's right. It's like this rebound anxiety with none of the anesthesia this time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found other ways to deal with the anxiety. I'm on an SSRI anxiety medication now, which had been so helpful for me.
Sure.
And then, just other healthy lifestyle changes, exercise, and trying to eat better. And,
fabulous.
Stay connected to humans and not isolate.
Exactly.
It's again, COVID was really hard too because when we're all isolated, I didn't drink, but man, I'll tell you, it was the first time in a while that I thought about it. And I got into some online AA groups to get with other people to remind myself that this is not the path I want to go down.
Oh, sure.
And I just needed to hear that from other people.
COVID was very difficult for me, and I'm an extrovert, but I became very introvertish. I kind of just became cloistered in my own little hole. And then I had a hard time getting out of it.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I was quite happy to not have anything to do with people in person,
That's right, me too.
Of course, then I didn't have to always worry about having my hair combed, my teeth brushed, and everything. And it lent itself to certainly a lifestyle of depression in many respects.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, what's the thing we can be expecting to hear about Josh Wilson in the next couple of years?
Well, I thought I was going to quit music. A few years ago, I dealt with depression.
Disappointment.
Well, you're kind. I thought I was going to quit. I had dealt with depression for the first time in 2021, and it sort of came to a head in 2022. And I had to cancel some shows because I was having panic attacks, and but again, I reached out for the help I needed, and I'm in a much, much better place now. And so I'm full speed ahead on music. So I think in the next year or two, I'm hoping to just keep cranking out songs. I'm inspired, I'm grateful, and I'm doing what I love. And so I hope the next thing you hear from me is another full length album.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great. And if I can help thrust this latest project into the forefront, I'm going to do just that.
Well, I sure appreciate it. And I hope that it helps people for years to come with all of these topics.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me and our listeners today. I just appreciate your authenticity and your openness. And just thank you for sharing your journey, because it will encourage others. I'm certain of it. So,
well, thank you for having me, and thanks for what you're doing with Fresh Hope. And I just appreciate all that you're doing and wish you all the best.
Well, thank you so much. Well, those of you who are listening, we're glad that you joined us today. I pray that this has been beneficial. I'm sure that it was. And one more time, it's mental help music.com, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. That's perfect.
Or now I said health. mentalhelpmusic.com. So check that out. And until the next time, my friends, may the Lord hold you in his perfect and ever new Fresh Hope. You've been listening to another edition of Fresh Hope. Talk to you next time.
You've been listening to Fresh Hope for Mental Health. If you have an opportunity, please review, share, and subscribe to the Fresh Hope for Mental Health podcast on iTunes or on the service that you use. We encourage you to share our podcast on social media with your friends and family. Previous podcasts of Fresh Hope for Mental Health can be found at freshhopeformentalhealth.com, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, and iTunes. Fresh Hope is one of the leading networks of faith-based peer support groups internationally. For more information about Fresh Hope, go to freshhope.us.